Considering this is October and Halloween is coming up, I thought it would be fitting to take a look at two horror titles for the Xbox 360. These titles are Condemned Criminal Origins and Condemned 2 Bloodshot. The first Condemned title was released in 2005 and was one of the first titles for the Xbox 360. Hence, it was one of the first titles to use the achievement system. But, being one of the launch titles, this game was also challenged with showing off the capabilities of the Xbox 360. So, how does this game hold up from both a horror title and an Xbox launch title standpoint? Well, let's dive right into this gorefest and find out. This game starts off with SCU, or Serial Crime Unit agent, Ethan Thomas. Ethan is a highly successful agent and is currently investigating the murders of a certain serial killer named the Matchmaker. During his investigation, he chases down who he suspects to be the killer. During this chase, he has his gun taken from him by the suspect, who then proceeds to kill two officers with said weapon and throw Ethan out a window. Ethan awakens in his apartment to find an old family friend named Malcolm Van Horn. Van Horn tells Ethan that the police are after him as they suspect that he killed the officers and believes that it would be in his best interest to leave before the police intercept him. But being a fugitive hasn't lost him all of his friends, as his lab assistant Rosa believes that he's still innocent and continues to help him find the killer and clear his name. Soon, Van Horn contacts Ethan and tells Ethan that he is sort of special. In other words, Ethan has been so successful in his investigations because he has sort of a psychic ability to see events that transpired at a crime scene. Personally, I'd be more impressed if he could read minds, but I guess this is pretty cool too. As Ethan continues his investigation, he finds out that the SCU has a certain interest in him, and even have highly classified x-rays of him with his esophagus blacked out, leading Ethan to believe that they have their own agenda in trying to find him. As if being hunted by the police and the SCU, along with playing a game of cat and mouse with a serial killer wasn't enough, the entire town seems to be having a large increase of violent crimes. In other words, many of the people in this town have inexplicably lost their goddamn minds and will attack you on sight. Well, along with each other. So, how is a guy supposed to fight his way through an entire city? Well, this is really one of the most interesting aspects of this game. In some missions, you start off with a firearm. However, you are in fact limited to what you have in the clip. Now, in most games, all you would have to do is just pick up ammo from the enemies. But realistically, random people don't tend to hold firearms on them, and even if they did, what are the odds that they would have the same ammo as you? In short, you can use guns, but those aren't the most prevalent weapons in the game. So, aside from guns and the obvious fists, how do you take out your enemies? Well, that's very simple. Grab anything and everything you can. See an electric conduit sticking out from the wall? Grab it and bash enemies' skulls in. See a pipe sticking out from a wall? Time to do some plumbing. Yep, you can grab everything from 2x4s, fire axes, sledgehammers, shovels, and even flaming planks in order to dispatch your foes. Each weapon has different stats, from the damage they do to their reach to their speed, and the game will let you know what you will be trading when you swap weapons. But combat isn't the only aspect of the game. As previously mentioned, Ethan is in fact an investigator, and as also mentioned, he has visions, and sometimes hallucinations, which help him with his investigations. But Ethan isn't exactly a paranormal investigator, so he also has his tools of the trade. These tools vary from using a scanner to identify fingerprints, a black light for finding blood patterns, and much more. All of the evidence is then sent to Rosa, and then she reports her findings to you to help you with your investigation. Let's see, what part comes next in this video? I believe it starts with the one phrase I say in every review. Oh, that's right. Now for the reviewing. The graphics in this game were very impressive for the time and still hold up fairly well today. The enemies and character models are well designed, even though many of the enemies are identical. Who knew so many people in one city could be related? The environments have a very broken down and, well, condemned feel to them. The locations at times do feel a bit dull, but I'd argue that it heavily augments the feeling of despair and horror, and just makes the game feel darker in general. And speaking of dark, there is one other thing I should mention about this game. It is very dark. And I don't mean that in an atmospheric sense. I mean at times, you can't see shit. So just a heads up, you may need to turn the brightness up to play this game. As for the gameplay, the combat has a bit of a clunky feel to it, but I wouldn't say it hinders your ability to fight. In fact, I would say that this aspect works in the game's favor. You see, having a clunkier feel to the combat really gives you the feeling that you are in fact fighting tooth and nail for your own survival. As for the AI, there's nothing really special here. The enemies all attack in basically the exact same pattern and can easily be dispatched if you manage to time your blocks and attacks properly. Now, considering you aren't exactly dealing with geniuses here, it should be expected that they wouldn't attack in a reasonable pattern. However, having a fairly predictable pattern does little to add to the challenge. So, what do I think of this game overall? Well, to be fair, from both a gameplay and graphical standpoint, this game really does show its age. And even though the story is fairly compelling, you will need to play the sequel to get many of the answers to the plot. So, from a critic standpoint, I'd have to say that this game is just okay. However, this game does have very effective atmosphere, and the amount of plot that it does give you leads to some very rewarding and even bone-chilling moments. Not to mention, forcing you to improvise your weapons gives one of the few times I've seen a game that felt like a genuine horror survivor title. So, here's my bottom line. If you're looking for a spectacular game, look elsewhere. However, if you want an effective horror survival experience, then I'd recommend giving this game a try. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Before I go, let me leave you with this.
Believe you found Mr. Tibbetts. Image seems to match personnel file. It didn't come through properly, though. Can you take a close-up?
Help me.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to go recover from a heart attack. See you next time.